certain tasks or just
Let's see, you just use discipline in the description or the answer to what is discipline.
yes.
So in the senses that I'm hearing, you're applying it to a person as a specific trait or skill set. The ability to sort of lock things down and focus on something, or to be self-restrained, that all relates to an individual. So what we're doing is describing some characteristic or property of a person, not the noun I'm actually looking for.
What's you
You're not wrong. You're not quite at the bullseye yet.
Following a set schedule, doing certain things.
Again, that's about the person doing a particular activity. What is a discipline?
No, I had it in my head a second ago, but like a particular. I want to use that word in what I'm trying to say. A particular skill set, the
Okay.
particular practice.
Practice, skill set. We're approaching something.
Like a structure that keeps you on track.
Does it have to? Does it have to keep you on track? Because now we're conflating the thing I want to talk about with the personal characteristics that we've talked about. Jack?
So what you already used the slides. I have it.
But you want to keep using you can't use the word to define the word, people. That hasn't helped anybody. Okay, go ahead.
I misunderstood before, but
That's fine.
definition to it's a teaching created by a wise person with people with focus.
Does it have to be a teaching?
Can be tradition,
Sometimes.
practice, customs, courtesy.
No.
Does it have to be a custom or some?
Routine,
I mean, can it be more than that?
probably.
In art. Yeah.
An art? Like what?
Depending on what it is.
Give me an example. In the sense that we're now talking, what are these disciplines?
I use like spiritual disciplines, as in like your fruits of the spirit, like patience, kindness.
As in practices,
Yes.
things we engage, we practice.
Is something you develop in order to reach higher understanding of something.
Yeah, but you're focused on the individual characteristics again here. We've shifted again, right? Something you develop, well, that's skill set, that's, well, maybe. I mean, maybe we're headed back in the right direction with that. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more maybe. Go ahead.
Something that requires certain things.
Something that requires certain things.
I mean,
It's a lot of things and not a lot of like narrowing.
something that requires certain things to be done in order to attain a goal. So, like
Something that requires certain things to be done in order to attain a goal.
For example, sports discipline would be eating foods that.
We're back to that self-restraint though. A disciplined diet is a restrained one.
Yeah.
Well, but that's not the discipline that we're talking about. Because now we're back to the characteristic of self-restraint, not.
Yeah.
Okay.
You definitely need the main
Skill
character.
set or trait that
Skill set or trait.
that you're born.
Not in the sense that I'm talking about it here.
That you
Being disciplined is a trait. A discipline is not a trait. So we have to drop that thinking. I'm pressing this because without understanding this concept of a discipline, we are going to lose the concept of what monastic life and monastic orders are all about. Does that make sense? Because we are going to continue to conflate the issues of self-restraint and the character trait of discipline being regimented and routined with a discipline, which is a different thing. One is descriptive of a person, and the other is a thing in and of itself. Is this making sense?
I know what you're getting at, I just don't know how to explain it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start here.
Where are you going here?
Skill set might be, I don't know if that's hyphenated or not. I'm gonna,
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
That- I think
I
that's
think
fine.
it's words.
okay. We could say perhaps a profession. Craft. Role. Let me do it this way. What is your discipline?
School.
Yeah, right. School. You all have it in common. Being student. This is your discipline. It's the role that you play. It's also the task. It's the occupation. It's the skill set. It's the profession. It's what you do. In some sense, a discipline is some thing, lack of better words, that we do that requires a set of skills or characteristics or capabilities, right? Okay. You pitch. Okay. So just, it requires a certain set of mechanics, right? It requires a certain release point. It requires a certain grip on a baseball. It requires a certain knowledge and set of tasks that come with it. And that's really what we're talking about. Disciplines typically are things that require some kind of knowledge, task, and we could say skill, and commitment. I think that's how you spell it. Chalkboard doesn't have spell check. Sorry. What?
There may be two T's.
Let's start forward to.
We should
Yeah.
we should have done that.
Going forward
No,
to.
there's two T's. No.
Okay.
There's two T's.
So, now I ask my follow-up question: is education a discipline?
Yes. Yes.
For whom?
The thing is,
You just
Oh,
said that.
yes.
For all
Yes.
parties.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
Everybody. For all. Everybody that's participating.
Everybody that's participating in it.
I feel like it could depend, but
Yeah,
Probably
no, all
just-
parties.
All parties involved.
I mean, you have to.
Teachers.
All those apply to you as well.
Because teachers and students. Like,
Okay.
I mean, you're.
It also requires a certain skill set, right? And a craft. Listen, you know the difference. I'm not trying to highlight anybody in particular here, so don't do that. You know the difference when you walk into a room of a teacher that you consider to be a good teacher and somebody that you really struggle to engage with in a classroom. And it's not necessarily about the content that's up here. Some of the smartest people in their field suck as teachers. Because the craft also involves people skills. Some of the best people on the planet suck as teachers because they don't know their craft. They don't know their skill set. They don't know their content. Yeah? A discipline involves all of these things. Every profession is a discipline. How good you are at it boils down to your commitment to it, your task or your skill involved, and how willing you are to know it. Right? Your dad's a prime example. He builds stuff. Craftsman, for lack of better terms. There's a certain skill set that comes with that. He has it, my father-in-law has it. I do not. I can. It's going to take me a lot longer to get to that point, though. Because the internal translation from how I see stuff in my head to how it actually has to line up to make it work is a lot more effort for me. I don't have that skill set. And so the task becomes more arduous. I have to lay it all out mechanically. Right? Some of you have to do this for like math. Some of you have to do this for English.
Nope. Math.
Right? It takes more work, so you need more task because the skill set is part of the struggle. Right? Are you with me on this? Right? I'm nerd math smart. I'm not like build a deck smart. I mean, I did, build a deck. But I'm nerd math smart, not that smart. So I need more time or I need help to lay out the build deck smart stuff. Because I'm nerd math smart, right? Just making some semblance of sense to you. This is what we talk about. We talk about a discipline. So if education is a discipline, is your work a discipline?
As in,
Our work or
Yeah,
the
like
work
where you work.
Yes.
yes.
So like
Okay.
part-time job.
I mean, according to your.
Working at Chick-fil-A. Is it a discipline?
Yes. Yes. It's a profession.
I mean, it can be.
No, less task skill. Yeah.
You are technically a professional. You are doing a job and getting paid for it. That is the definition of professional. I mean, that's what it is. Otherwise, you'd be an amateur. Amateur Chick-fil-A worker. Look at amateur is just a fancy word for volunteer.
Professional fast food.
Certain levels of professional typically belong to certain segments of the population. Right? Don't see too many individuals at my age with a family. They're going to Chick-fil-A. Right? For the most part, it's younger folks. People somewhere between your age and 25. High school, college. Unless they've landed themselves in like management. You follow me? Because at some point in time, the level and the profession and the desires shift and change. It's just making sense, but it doesn't make you any less a professional. Are you with me on that? Okay. And by the way, amateur is just a fancy word for volunteer. Not necessarily, because interns can be paid. And you're not necessarily training for, you're already performing the task. Right? So college, some college athletes who are amateurs, because they're not getting paid for their task.
Some are better than professional.
Sure, absolutely. But they're volunteering. Fancy word for volunteer. Okay, anyway. Okay. Discipline. Education is a discipline. Work is a discipline. Let's try that again. Here's the pair.
Yes.
Why do we say that?
It requires knowledge and commitment, and you do have a task that you.
Say what?
I guess not complete, but fulfill.
Okay.
It's a role.
Yeah?
Definitely does require commitment.
Well, for sure. Why do we consider it? Let me ask it this way. I'm going to back up. When was the last time you thought about following Christ as a discipline, like education, like work, like some of the stuff we've been talking about? Never? Oh. Okay. Then why do those of us who follow Jesus why are we called disciples?
You're following the teaching of Jesus.
We're learning the discipline.
Say what?
We're learning the discipline.
Oh, very good. Because we're learning the discipline. We're growing in the discipline. Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We see this with professional athletes is a good one, right? You go from college to pro, minor leagues to big leagues. And there's always that adjustment period. They're capable, but more growth is necessary to become Derek Jeter. That's the first name that pops in my head. Some Hall of Famer. Right? You don't necessarily start day one and you're a Hall of Famer. But if you can grow into your discipline, then we can reach intended objectives. Just making some semblance of sense. Okay. This right here, this is the starting point for monastic life. So let's do this. Monastic orders. Make it a new section in your notes, but it's connected to this idea of discipline. Monastic orders. All of them share this basic line of thought. Christians are disciples, adherents to a particular teaching and way of life. Right? Does that make sense? This is the working definition of disciple. Adherence to a teaching and a way of life. I'll even add A in front of it. Adherence to a teaching and a way of life. Electricians, adherence to a teaching and a way of life. Teaching, the knowledge of how electrical systems work. A way of life, fixing other people's screwed up stuff, wiring, etc. Grandfather does it all the time. Smart dude. Yeah? Oh, okay. But that requires some stuff from us, too. That means that being a Christian for the monastic order is a discipline because we are a disciple. Is this making sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, follow that up. Being a Christian is a discipline that requires, guess what?
Discipline.
Hey! Oh! So the follow-up then is, how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we develop the personal trait kind of discipline to do these things because being a Christian is a bad thing. Making sense now? This is what monastic order is trying to answer. In short, how do we live like Christians who are following the teaching and the way of life? What does the teaching and way of life require of us? How do we do it? How do we engage it? How do we understand it? Yes? Go to Matthew 21. Book or iPad. Go there somehow.
Time travel.
Say what?
Could we time travel there?
Not at the present. We haven't figured out how to move space-time yet.
I just need to fast forward about 30 seconds. I'll be there.
Ooh, thanks, man. All right, Matthew 21. Go to verse 33. Matthew 21, 33. Somebody read for me.
Listen to another parable. There was a man, a landowner, who planted a vineyard, put a fence around it, dug a winepress in it, and built a watch farm. He leased it to tenant farmers and went away. When the grape harvest drew near, he sent his slaves to the farmers to collect his fruit. So the farmers took his slaves, beat one, killed another, and stoned a third. Again, he sent other slaves, more than the first group, and they did the same to them. Finally, he sent his son to them. They were, "Respect my son," he said. But when the tenant farmers saw the son, they said among themselves, "This is the heir. Come, let's kill him and take his inheritance." So they seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those farmers? "You will completely destroy those terrible men," they told him, "and lease his vineyard to other farmers, who will give him his brothers at the harvest."
Oh, nice. Okay. What does this have to do with disciplines? We're going to talk about it in a minute. Go to Philippians 1:27. Bouncing around some New Testament texts today. Philippians chapter 1. Ready? Here's what it says. Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or I am absent, I may hear of you, that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel. Okay. Go to Colossians 1. Right after Philippians 1. We want to read 9 through 14. Somebody read for us? Colossians 1, 9 through 14. Please. Oh, thanks, Trevor.
And so from the day we heard, we have not ceased to pray for you, asking that you may fulfill with the knowledge of his will and all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him, bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, for all endurance and patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins.
Cool. Notice here there's a bit more. It's expanded. It's related to the knowledge of God, him qualifying us, and our then task of walking worthy. There it is again. Romans 12, 1 and 2. We know this. I'm not going to necessarily make us go there. I want to highlight this piece of the Romans 12, 1 and 2 text. So Romans 12, 1 and 2 in the paraphrase, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, right? This is your spiritual act of worship, holy and pleasing to God. And then in that run, Paul says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What's the command there?
To be transformed.
To be transformed. Does he say transform yourself? No, because you can't. It's a passive imperative. So here's the deal. All of these pick up on a couple of things. Okay? One. There is a God-given task. Paul says it in Philippians and Colossians. Walk worthy. The parable of the tenants. Be a good steward of what God has provided you. Romans 12, 1 and 2. Transformed. Be a living sacrifice. There's a task involved, and it's given by God. Second, there is a personal responsibility. God gave the tenants in the parable of the tenants a task. They do a good job. Not me, probably a question. Did the tenants in the parable of the tenants do a good job?
No.
No, they did a terrible job, which is why God sends them away. Right? There is a measure of personal responsibility to accomplishing said task. The Colossians passage highlights it. That was the one you read, I think, right? While there is a personal responsibility, there is also a work of God in us for the task and our responsibility. Too many eyes. Okay, then. So, if there's a God-given task, a personal responsibility, and the work of God in us for the task and the responsibility, then how do we go about these things? Here's the answer from the monastic order. Ready? You take what the Desert Fathers and Mothers did. You add community and education. And you get maturity. This is the program and the paradigm. Here's why it works this way. This is at the core of every monastic order we will talk about. Monastic thought runs this 4-part parallel in just about every stream of monastic thought. Number 1, sin is disobedience. When we do stuff God doesn't want us to do, sin, we are disobeying something and disobeying someone. And so sin is, in a very basic general sense, sin is disobedience. Two, people sin. That's revolutionary. Therefore, people are at least from time to time disobedient. Yeah? Yes? Are we awake? I know I'm struggling, but come on.
Good second, Bill.
And
I used up all my energy first, Bill.
wow. You got a long way to go, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you do? What do you do with people that are disobedient?
Stone them.
Which is
Discipline.
which is that kind of discipline. Right? The training, the trait of adherence to a particular set of things, self-restraint, or whatever the case may be, right? So what do you do with people that are disobedient? Yeah. People need correcting or discipline to obey. Following God is obeying. The needs teaching. Needs. Time out. What do I do with my 4-year-old when she disobeys? Go sit on the stair. Bottom stair of the staircase. That's your timeout spot. Go sit on the stair. Invariably, when we send one of our daughters to timeout, they storm off. And then they sit down. It's something close to that. Right? And then later, when we go over and have a conversation with them, there's tears. We need timeout. So hold on a second. If following God is obeying, then we need teaching. What should we do? When we mess it up, we need a timeout. Not because God is angry, but because we need to think. Where did I go wrong? Where do I got to adjust the game plan? Right? We need timeout. Not like correction timeout, like space away. Back to that desert fathers and mothers. Here the word timeout has this sort of double entendre. We need timeout. We need time to remove ourselves from the stuff that's impeding us from making good decisions. And then we need time in, time out. We need break. We need time away. We need that isolated. We also need support. Okay, I'm gonna enter the world of this ridiculous question. How good is Tom Brady? Not a Tom Brady fan, but listen, it is really hard to argue with how good he is. Period.
I don't like him, but if he wins the Super Bowl, I will undoubtedly say he is the greatest quarterback of all time.
Listen,
If he is
I am a Joe Montana fan. Even if he doesn't win this particular Super Bowl, Tom Brady is knocking on the door of Joe Montana, if not like standing in the room with him, as far as one of the greatest ever to play the game. Yeah? Hold on. Has he done it on his own?
Nope.
No. Has he done it though?
Yes.
Same is true here. One of the harshest critiques the monastic order has of the Desert Fathers and Mothers is you cannot do it on your own. You need the support. You need the community. 1. 2, it was never intended to be me and Jesus hanging out in the desert. Me and Jesus living in a basket on top of a 30-foot pole. It was not the intention. Yes, somebody actually did that in church history. That was not the intention. The intention was a community of people. You need a team. Yeah? Go ahead.
I think there's a harsh critique. Was it just the way they said it?
Because the Desert Fathers and Mothers were sort of isolationists to an extreme. Okay. We will pick up here. We will pick up here tomorrow. Okay? Good? Questions, concerns, complaints, freakouts, or casualties? No, just Monday morning?
Yep.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes. Also,